Hey, we're back with another Lick of the Week video, and I thought for this video we'd talk a little bit about detuners. Some of you folks may be new to detuners or may be thinking about buying a set. I use the Keith style tuners, which are the name brand, the original encased gear detuners. There are some foreign made like Schallers, which are made in Germany, and they work okay. And then there are the cheetah key type, which clamp to the peg head themselves, and then there's the old cam type. But they're all basically doing the same thing, which is raising and lowering the pitch of the strings to a preset location with what's known as stops. I'm going to talk about the key style tuners. If you have the Schaller tuners, the principle is the same. And if you have cam tuners, you're still setting typically the same notes, and you're still looking for stop positions, but the settings or the way you adjust them are a little different. So this video will talk about basically the Keith style or the enclosed gear type detuners. And the reason they're called detuners is the most prevalent setting for the stops, and by stops that means the knobs on each one of these detuners sets a downward position for the tuner to swing down until it stops, and then an upward swing position. So by setting each knob to a specified point, the tuner can swing within the parameters of those two stop positions, either so far down before it hits a stop or up, and that's determined by you. But they're called detuners because the most common way to set these is to drop your banjo in detuning. And if you want to know more about detuning, I just posted a video a couple weeks ago explaining what detuning is. So let's go ahead and set these tuners. Right now I'm in standard G tuning, and it's a good idea to play around with these tuners when you first buy them to make sure that you're familiar with how they operate. So hopefully this video will be helpful. So I'm going to check my tuning here. Pretty close. Okay, now you can designate each one of these buttons however you like. One is usually like a stainless steel colored, and the other one is painted black. So you can decide which one you want to be up or down by switching the buttons themselves. So take them out of the hole and move them to another hole. So I have mine set so that the black buttons represent up. And as far as the position of the tuners go, you can determine when you install the tuners or when you have your local luthier install them, which way you want the stop buttons to point. I have the buttons on mine pointed so that I have easy access to both sides. You can't see it in the angle of this video probably, but both of those tuners are facing me instead of being turned to the other side. That way I can see which knob I'm grabbing. And I have mine set so that the black knobs are in the holes that represent up, and then the silver stainless steel knobs represent down. So let's go ahead and set the tuners. I'm going to set, since I know I'm now in standard G tuning, I'm going to set the B string black knob, which on my tuners is set for up. Now I'll attempt to go down and back and listen if I have this stop set correctly. Now if you listen to the note that I came back up to, evidently the stop didn't connect in the right place because it sounds like it's a little flat. So what I'll have to do then is unloosen the knob, just give it just enough of a turn so that it's not set, reset the tuning, and then snug. You don't want it so hard that you can't break it loose if you need to, but set it hard enough that it holds in place. Now I'm going to go down and back on the B string, and if it's set correctly, I can go down as far as I want. But when I come back to the stop position, it will always come back to that B note. Now if it sounds like it's too low or too high again, you can always loosen the knob slightly, and you can play around. It takes a little bit used to it. Even Keith tuners, which are I think are the best encased gear type that you can get, even they don't work perfectly all the time. And it helps sometimes to put a little graphite in the B and the G string slot for those two tuners. Now some players actually use all 4 D tuners. They'll put another set of tuners for these two so that they can play more complex things. 2 is enough for me to keep up with. But if you did use 4, then obviously you would need to make sure you had all 4 notches cut correctly and have graphite in each slot. But I'm just using these 2 tuners, the B and the G. Okay, now I have the upper stop set. Now I'm going to swing the B tuner down to an A note, and I'm going to set the silver knob. I'm going to turn it in until it stops, snug it. Now, if I have this set correctly, let's see if I can go from A up to B and back and forth. Now again, if you notice that the pitch of that lower note is too low or not low enough, just unset the knob that you specified for down. Break it loose enough that you can adjust the tuner and then reset it. So now I have the B string set for the upper swing being B, which is standard for that string. Now I have it set for down to A. So let's go to the G string now. My G string is now tuned to G, so I'm going to set the black knob on mine, which I have in the down hole. I'm sorry, the up hole. Now my tuner should not swing any higher than a G. And again, if it needs fine tuning, then I'll just unset it and reset it. If it's too high. Okay, now I have it set for G, so that tuner can swing no higher than a G note. Now I'm going to swing it down to an F sharp, half step. Okay, so I will tighten the silver knob, which is in the hole for down on my tuner. So now all 4 of my stop buttons are set on the pair of tuners. So now I can swing from B down to A on the second string, and from G to F sharp on the third string. Now again, this is just standard D tuning, where the banjo is retuned to D, and the D tuners allow you to go down to D and back to G. Now there are other ways to tune D tuners, obviously, even though the name implies that they're just used for D tuning, they're not. For songs like Randy Lynn Rag, you'll actually tune the B string up a half step to a C. And you can use them for minor tunings. There's a lot of cool things you can do with these mechanical Keith tuners besides just swinging down to D. You can actually use them to go up or down or anywhere you want them to go. But this is the typical way that you get familiar with D tuners. And again, make sure you have good clean notches in the bridge and in the nut, and that you keep a little graphite in the slots to lubricate them. And sometimes they can be finicky. If your banjo is really cold or really hot, it changes the consistency of the lubrication inside the casing. Sometimes they get a little hard to turn. And you also have knobs on the back of your tuners that are tension adjustments. You don't want the buttons, the tension on the knob set so tight that it's hard to turn. And by the same token, you don't want to have these knobs so loose that once you set the tuners, they start to leak back to where they were. So there's a certain feel-good sweet spot on the tension where they'll hold. And make sure you do not use pliers to tighten any of these buttons, because overstressing these knobs, the stop buttons, will void your warranties on your D tuners and also can damage them. So that's just a quick overview of D tuners, and maybe in the next video we'll explore some other ways to use settings on these tuners to find some unique tunings on the banjo. Maybe we'll go over a couple of songs. So we'll call this your D tuner primer.